Hello everyone, and welcome to this first video in the series where we will be building a simplified version of Dropbox using Deno KV, Fresh, and Supabase. Let's take a quick look at what we'll be building. This is the home page. We have our navbar, a button to allow us to create folders in our current folder structure. When we click on it, a modal shows up asking for a folder's name. We have a section for drag and drop. We'll be building our own custom drag and drop component. No need to use any libraries for that. And finally, we have a table to display all the folders and files in our current folder structure. By default, the home page is considered the home folder. If we click on the books folder becomes the current folder, and we can then see all the folders and files inside of books. This can go on and on, so any folder can have other folders and files until we end up with an empty folder. We can use the previous button at the top to head back to the parent folder all the way to the home page. We are persisting everything using Deno KV, and the actual file is being uploaded to Supabase. So let's create a new folder and call that school. When we hit submit, we're immediately redirected to the school folder, which is currently empty. We can go ahead and upload some files and images. So I'll drag and drop some files. We see it's immediately reflected in our page whenever a file is dropped into the folder. We can click on the files to view the content, so we can check out the image that was uploaded. And we see that image being displayed in our page. If we head back, we can also take a look at the txt file, which is just a recipe for a double chocolate cookie. It's a nice application overall to learn how to make use of Deno KV as our database and how to use it with Fresh. We'll also create an API route in Fresh to help us properly upload files, and we'll have that work with Supabase to store those uploaded files. We'll get much more comfortable using islands whenever interactivity is needed, like for our modal or the drag and drop component. So with all that said, let's get started. We'll need to have Deno installed. If you don't already have it installed, head over to Deno.com and just follow the instruction for your platform. Other than that, we'll also need to have a Supabase free account to let us store our files. You can easily create one by going to Supabase.com and following the sign up instructions. Afterward, create a new project in Supabase. Mainly just make sure to select the free month plan, and we won't really need the database, so you could just enter whatever you want. Once your project is set up, we can head over to the storage section, and you can create a new bucket. Call this one folders. So I already have one created, and just make sure it's set to public and then hit save. We'll also need to select some policies to our bucket. So you can click on policies. You can already see I have some policies configured for folders. You can click on new. We'll go for full customization and just select everything. Select, insert, update, delete, and just set that to the target roles anon. And then you can hit review and save that. With all that, Supabase is all set up. We can now create our Fresh project. So I'm at the fresh.deno.dev page. We can go to docs, create a project, copy this into our terminal, and call this Fresh Drop. Like always, we'll say yes to using Tailwind and yes to VS Code. We can now cd into our project and start it by saying Deno task start. If we go to our local host, we should see our basic Fresh project all set up and ready to start. Now inside VS Code, I'll delete everything that was automatically generated except for the index route. So we'll get rid of the button, islands, this API route, and this name. Then we can head over to our index and just remove everything in there. Let's now add Supabase to our project. We'll first create a .m file in our root directory, and we'll add the Supabase URL and Supabase key. You can find this information in Supabase. If you head over to project settings, click on API, you should see your project's URL as well as the anon key. Next, we'll add the Supabase.js package to our project. If we go to deno.json, right under std, we can add @Supabase/Supabase.js. I'll be using version 2.21.0. We used to have to import the .m module ourselves, but with the new version of Fresh, it's automatically included in the main.TypeScript file. So make sure that this is set here. If not, you can add it manually. And that's all we need to have access to our environment files and to also have access to Supabase in our project. Let's also create a new folder to store our Supabase logic as well as our Deno KV logic. So I'll create a folder and call that utils. We'll create the necessary files in it when we actually end up needing them later on. We can now start with our UI. Let's create the navbar component for our project. So inside of the components folder, we can create a new file called navbar.tsx. We'll first start with importing the lemon icon. If you head over to the Deno docs, components, if you take a look at any of the header or footer, you'll see that to get this lemon icon, you simply have to import it from this location. So you can just copy paste that into our project. Next, we'll export our navbar component. We'll return a JSX element. It'll first have a header with a white background, a div to add some margin and padding and automatically center our component on the page. We'll add another div to display the items in Flex. We'll specify the height and center the items. Inside of that, we'll have the logo using the lemon icon and have our app title, Fresh Dropbox. Afterwards, we'll have the navbar links. In our case, we don't really have that many links. We just have one of them, which is the homepage and redirects to our homepage. For displaying the UI, we'll also create a layout component to avoid having to duplicate too many things. So under our components folder, again, we'll create a new file called layout.tsx. We'll import the component children type from preact. and the navbar component that we just created. We'll create a new layout props interface, which for now only has the component children type that we imported. We can export our layout component, and in the parameters, we take in our props. We'll return a JSX element. Inside, we'll first show the navbar, and then we'll create a div similar to the navbar. We'll add some margin padding to our content section. For now, the only thing we'll display in it is the props children. So the component children will allow us to pass in our own HTML or other components inside of the layout component. We can now go into our index route. We can import our layout component, export our default homepage route, inside of which we'll return a JSX element. We'll make use of our layout component, and as a children component, we'll simply pass in a div saying hello fresh. So if we hit save, make sure our server is running. If we head over to our browser, click refresh, we should now see our navbar as well as our child component saying hello fresh. This wraps up this video. We've checked out what we'll be building in this series and the various elements involved in it. We've set up our project and Supabase, and we've started working on the UI part of things. I'll see you in the next video. Thanks for watching. Bye.